Hello everyone, and welcome back to Travel with Brian. In my last video, we reviewed the top states by the number of sports teams. As you can expect with those states, all of them have a very large urban population. As a follow-up to that video, I thought it would be interesting to review the opposite of that, the most rural states. Officially, the U.S. Census Bureau recognizes two types of populated areas: urbanized areas with a population greater than 50,000 people, as well as urban clusters with a population under 50,000 people but still greater than 2,500. While the Census Bureau does not officially define the term rural, it is widely accepted that this term encompasses all areas that are outside of either urbanized areas or urban clusters. From the 2010 census, just over 80% of the U.S. population lives in one of those two types of areas. So, where does the remaining 20% live? Today, we'll be answering that question by reviewing the top 10 states by their rural population percentage. Starting off at number 10, we have North Dakota. Now, North Dakota still has a fairly good-sized urban population. Fargo is a major city on the east side of the state with approximately 126,000 residents. In addition, there are a few other major cities spread across the state, such as Grand Forks and the state capital of Bismarck. However, approximately 40.1% of North Dakota's population lives in rural areas. One of the driving factors promoting this rural lifestyle is the suitability of the state's land to grow some of the most valuable grains needed to feed the nation, primarily wheat, durum, and barley. Moving ahead to number 9, we have Alabama. Now, Alabama does have a pretty substantial urban population, considering there are 5 cities in the state which contain a population of greater than 100,000 people, with the top 3 being Birmingham, Montgomery, and Huntsville. However, once you get away from these cities, Alabama is a significantly rural state. Approximately 41% of Alabama's population lives in a rural area. In these areas, the economy is largely based on the farming of corn, soybeans, and cotton. Coming in at number 8, we have Kentucky. This one was a bit surprising to me, since Louisville is a substantially major city with a population in excess of 600,000 people. In addition, Lexington has a population of greater than 300,000 residents. However, outside of these two cities, Kentucky only has 2 cities with a greater population than 50,000 residents, and just a handful of cities with greater than 10,000. Overall, approximately 41.6% of Kentucky's residents live in rural areas. The rural areas of Kentucky are focused primarily on livestock production, which is primarily poultry and eggs. In addition, Kentucky's rural areas have helped build its reputation as the horse capital of the world, with an equine industry that exceeds $400 million. Next up at number 7 is the state of South Dakota. To my knowledge, South Dakota is best known for being the home of Mount Rushmore, as well as having a substantially low population. If I am wrong about that, please feel free to call me out in the comments. However, as of the 2020 census, only 13 cities in South Dakota exceed 10,000 residents. The largest of these cities, Sioux Falls, has a population of just over 192,000. Overall, approximately 43.4% of South Dakota's residents live in rural areas. Now, South Dakota's population has been substantially increasing in recent times, so this may change in the upcoming years. But at the present time, South Dakota is an agricultural powerhouse, and agriculture is the #1 industry in the state. The state's 3 main crops are soybeans, corn, and wheat, but there are a large variety of other crops grown in the state, along with a robust livestock industry. Coming in at number 6, we have the state of Arkansas. Now, Arkansas does have a major regional population center in the state capital of Little Rock. Little Rock has a population in excess of 200,000 residents. In addition, Arkansas is probably most famous for being the home of the headquarters of Walmart. After all, the world's largest retailer is also the largest employer in the state. However, Arkansas's population is still significantly sparse. Overall, the rural population makes up approximately 43.8% of the state's population. These rural areas lead the United States in the growth of rice and also have substantial growth of corn, cotton, and wheat. Moving ahead to number 5, we have the state of Montana. Now, it should not be a surprise that Montana is ranked in the top 10 of most rural states. After all, Montana has a reputation of having wide open spaces comprised of beautiful scenery with little interference by humans. This fact is true, as the natural beauty of the state is indescribable, and that the state only has 8 cities with a population greater than 10,000 people. The largest of these cities, Billings, has a population of just over 117,000. In total, Montana has a rural population of approximately 44.1%. These rural areas of Montana are dominated by two titans of agriculture, cattle and wheat. These two commodities account for nearly 3/4 of Montana's agricultural revenue. Up next, at number 4, we have the state of Mississippi. Now, it honestly surprised me that Mississippi is as rural as it turns out to be. I always knew that Mississippi isn't too densely populated, but until doing the research for this video, I didn't know that Mississippi only has 3 cities with a population greater than 50,000 people, which are Southaven, Gulfport, and the state capital of Jackson. The Magnolia State is the first on this list to have more than 50% of its population living in rural areas. Overall, the state's rural population is approximately 50.7% of its total population. These rural areas excel in the growth of cotton, soybeans, rice, and wheat. Coming in at number 3, we have the state of West Virginia. Now, this should not be a surprise to anyone, as the mountain state has a reputation for being very sparsely populated without many large cities. After all, the largest city in the state, Charleston, has a population just under 49,000. In addition, there are only 15 cities in West Virginia with a population greater than 10,000 residents. Overall, the state has a rural population of approximately 51.3% of the total population. Most of these rural areas are dominated by the mining industry, which is the largest sector of the state's economy. The rural areas are also largely focused on the growth of hay as well as raising livestock. Moving on to number 2, we have the state of Vermont. Now, in my opinion, Vermont has always appeared to be a state where you wonder who actually lives in the state, since it seems to be so secluded and sparsely populated. The largest city, Burlington, only has a population of just under 45,000, and there are only 11 cities overall with a population greater than 10,000. The state capital, Montpelier, only has a population just over 8,000 and is the least populated state capital in the United States. Given the low number of cities, it should be no surprise that the Green Mountain State has a rural population of approximately 61.1% of its total population. In these areas, Vermont has a reputation for a very robust and diverse agriculture industry, with corn, beans, and squash being the largest produced crops. In addition, Vermont has a significant industry of dairy, maple syrup, and apples. Before we move along to number 1, I just wanted to ask you to please go ahead and hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. I hope to continue to entertain and educate you, and I am definitely appreciative of your support. Finally, at number 1, we have the state of Maine. Now, prior to making this video, if you asked me to guess which state is the most rural, I definitely would not have guessed Maine. After all, the state still has 22 cities with a population greater than 10,000, and the largest city, Portland, has over 68,000 residents. However, the majority of the population of the Pine Tree State largely lives outside of these areas. Overall, the state has a rural population of 61.3% of its total population. These rural areas are well known for their dense forests, and the forest products industry is one of the largest sectors of the state's economy. The state also has a significant production of potatoes, dairy, and eggs, and is also one of the world's largest producers of wild blueberries. Before I go, I just wanted to say thank you very much to each and every one of you for watching my video today. I hope that I was able to entertain and educate you, and I hope that you will join me again. Until next time, this has been Travel with Brian.